All right, what is up, guys, and welcome back to another Zoids review. This one is often requested of me, and I'm finally getting around to it. I've been very excited about doing it. This is one that I didn't actually intend on getting for my collection, and it ended up being extremely lucky that I didn't go out of my way to find it because it ended up being given to me as a gift. So a huge shout out to two things. First, my father, who of course was watching some of my Zoids videos and said, okay, well, he's doing these Zoids reviews. Let me see if I can find him one of these things. And then Win Condition Games, the local game store close to me, for having this in stock. They've been having a lot of model kits, primarily Gunpla, over the last several years. But within the last 6 months or so, somebody that works there must be a big Zoids fan because they've taken a lot of interest in getting a lot of Zoids kits in stock, and not just the English allocation for the HMMs. They've been going out of their way to get other ones which do not have any kind of Western distribution line, including the Zero Phantoth, which we're going to be talking about today. I realize I've yet to talk about the Zero Greases, and after I do that, that will probably be all of the Zoids Wild Zero kits that I will buy, build, and review, unless I happen to find something like the Sonic Bird in the wild, which we'll see about that. But as much as I have really highly enjoyed the Zoids Wild Zero line, I have most of the kits now that I care about. And this will probably be the second to last one, the Zero Greases being the last one, of course, which the Zero Greases I've actually had for a while longer. So in terms of the anime in Zoids Wild Zero, the Zero Phantoth is the legion of the Zero Greases. These make up the army with which the Zero Greases uses to conquer and devastate the land. This first appears in episode 35, and after the protagonists destroy it, it ends up turning to stone, which is interesting. So we see the Zoid core of what the protagonists believe to be the Zero Greases sort of absorbing the life essence back out of these things after they're defeated. These things are quite a bit bigger than you would think by the model kit in the anime. They are absolutely massive, especially compared to the other Zoids around them, such as the majority of the Zoids that the good guys use. These things are quite a bit bigger, and so I originally thought when I saw this thing listed online that it was going to be, you know, of a similar size to the Omega Rex, for instance, but it ends up being closer to almost the same size as the Rising Liger, which we'll do the size comparison of that later. Obviously, it's an elephant or mammoth type Zoid, very similar to the Elephander from New Century Zero, which I also have one of those I need to do a review of soon. And I think that this is a much better looking elephant. It has a lot better features on it. You know, the tusks are just little pieces that sit out here. The elephant ears look nice, and they also move out to the side like this as part of the motorized function. Apparently that's some type of weapon that it has there. It's got the really nice eyes like that with the metallic red. And then the trunk itself also has points of articulation where it flips all the way up like this. It has a little spring right here. And this is part of the motorized function. So when you run the motor, what happens is, as it's walking, the trunk ratchets up like this, and eventually the spring coils up and it goes all the way back like that and pushes down on the little lever right here, which brings one of these bombs down. And then the trunk will actually yeet the bomb out forward like that, which is really cool. It's such a cool little gimmick. These weapons, which I will double check and figure out what they're called in the anime, but they are extremely powerful. It's one of the only weapons, ranged weapons, that the Zero Phantoth has, but it's really all that it needs to fulfill its unique purpose, because they are essentially massive grenades that cause an explosion so large they can take out a small squadron of Zoids, anywhere from 5 to 10 Zoids in a small cluster. They're extremely powerful and very effective at taking out structures, installations, and fortresses, which is the primary purpose of this Zoid, is sort of a siege bombardment sort of role. So they use these to sort of just artillery shell fortresses and installations, which allow the other Zoids to kind of flow in and devastate from there. In episode 39, we see a legion of Empire Zoids that appear to be corrupted by what I think is the Zoid core of the Zero Greases. It's hard to tell because I'm watching this without subtitles. The Republic Zoids are fighting back against it with the help of our protagonists when a Zero Phantoth rolls into the encounter. And with it comes the Fog of War. One of its abilities apparently is some kind of smoke cloaking system that it deploys, where it deploys this massive fog around it, which keeps it obscured. and it also jams the tracking and radars and all kinds of transmissions with the enemy Zoids. So it has a very strong jamming capabilities, which I'm sure comes up pretty handy with destroying fortresses as well, because they can't call for backup. And it was the help of the sonic bird that allowed the fog of war to be displaced by its, the sonic boom it created from its flybys, managed to disperse the fog of war. And then as it went to go yeet another bomb out, the sonic bird managed to cut the bomb in half. The explosion splash damaged the Zero Phantoth, allowing the Rising Liger to go in for the kill. These things, in spite of their size, are not that difficult to kill, for at least for our protagonists, and are seen in legions essentially towards the end of the series, while the Zero Croesus is the primary threat. In that later in the episode, they're actually able to capture the pilot of the Zero Phantoth for questioning, and we get some of the lore explanation about the Zoid from there. So pretty cool. I like it quite a bit. So in terms of the model kit, this guy does look really cool. Now I do feel like the regular kind of flat gray, the pilot is actually sitting right back here, by the way, which of course is not true to the anime, but is true to this model kit. Got this tiny little spindly tail right here that doesn't really do much of anything, but I like how simple yet consistent the color scheme is. The metallic purple just looks absolutely fantastic. The eyes look fantastic. It very much has the highly detailed, very heavily armored, mechanized look of the rest of the Zoids Wild Zero kits, and I really do like that about it. Again, the weapon it's large, it takes up a lot of space on the back, but it doesn't look oversized or too intrusive, and it doesn't actually ruin the silhouette of the total Zoid. It actually looks pretty, I wouldn't say discreet, but it blends in well with the silhouette of the Zoid. It doesn't ruin the look of it. It would be about the same as if it just had a bunch of cannons back there or something. But it's one of the most creative and unique weapons in the entire Zoids franchise. Like a grenade launcher where literally the elephant trunk throws the bombs out, you think would be kind of silly and impractical, but it's extremely powerful. Credit where it's due as far as that goes. Let's go ahead and do a little size comparison here. And of course I have the Rising Liger here with me, which I guess I'll leave the sword down. I don't want to put it back up quite yet, but this is actually a little bit of a problem. They're about the same size, and I know that scale is something that the anime tends to exaggerate from time to time as far as like the Death Soar and the Ultrasaurus and things like that are concerned, but this is more of like the Death Stinger in terms of size inconsistency. So you're talking about a Zoid which is clearly seen to be much, much larger than the regular medium-sized infantry Zoids that it's fighting. It's meant to be like borderline Titan class, like not quite as big as the Omega Rex, but close to it. And yet for the model kit, they decided to just make it the exact same size as the Wild Liger and the other Motorized kits. And I just thought that was strange. And again, by the way the thing was priced, I would have thought that it would have been similar size again to the Omega Rex, because this thing was listed for like $45, $50 online. Even on HLJ, it's more expensive than a lot of these guys, which were between 20 and 30 most of the time, 35 for like the Skyrazor. But this thing's not even really as big as the Skyrazor, not in my opinion at least. So yeah, the scale of it is a little bit disappointing. I was expecting it to be much, much larger, but without that anime context in mind, I think that it actually looks fantastic, and it's bulky enough in the right places where it matters, and I think it will scale well next to the protagonist Zoids on the shelf. I forgot you had to rotate the gun back into place to get the knife to stay back there, but yeah. Really, really cool Zoid. Can't really say too much about the build complexity at this point. It is not like a lot of the other Zoids Wild and Zoids Wild Zero kits where it has a look about it underneath the armor. If you take the armor off on this guy, you're basically looking at the inner construction of it. It doesn't have like a skeleton underneath of it where you can just take these armor pieces off and it still has, skeleton-like details. That's not really the case with this one. So it's a little bit unique as far as a build complexity standpoint goes. If you wanted to pick one of these up, they are becoming harder to find. So some of the online stores like HLJ or maybe even Nin Games may have some of these residual on the site, but they're getting up there in price. Like I said, you're probably looking between $50, $60 maybe before shipping for one of these now. which is a lot. And but they are still out there. This was one of the last kits released for the Zoids Wild Zero line before we got the Senki toys. So there are still shops in Japan that do have these. And this thing, I think it does actually appear in Zoids Wild Senki and is part of that lore as well. So this was part of the same product release as the Zero Greasus, which was sort of like wave 2.5, wave 3 basically of the Zoids Wild Zero kits as they were on their way out, and the Senki kits were on their way in. So they sort of used the Zero Phantoth and Zero Greasus along with the Burning Liger and all that in the same lore in Zoids Wild Senki, just for advertisement purposes. So they're out there somewhere, but they are getting more expensive. So anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.